Ellen DeGeneres had been reading fan mail on her show for years, but she never expected that one weathered envelope would lead to the most profound moment of her career. What started as a light-hearted segment about viewer correspondence became a journey through time that proved some connections transcend decades, and sometimes the most important letters are the ones that were never sent. It was a Thursday afternoon at the Ellen studios, and the energy was relaxed and playful. Ellen, wearing a bright turquoise blazer over white jeans, was settling into one of her favorite segments, reading letters from viewers. The familiar basket of mail sat beside her chair, overflowing with colorful envelopes and postcards from fans around the world. "All right, everybody, it's time for some fan mail," Ellen announced to the enthusiastic audience. "I love hearing from you guys. You always make me laugh, sometimes you make me cry, and today, well, let's see what you've got for me." She reached into the basket and pulled out the first letter. This one's from Sarah in Michigan. She says, "Dear Ellen, my 3-year-old daughter insists on dancing every time your show comes on. Yesterday she danced so hard she knocked over our Christmas tree. Totally worth it." "That's adorable, Sarah. Tell her to keep dancing." The audience laughed as Ellen reached for another letter. This one was typed on bright pink paper. "Oh, this is from the Henderson family in Texas. They say they watch every episode together as a family tradition, and their grandmother, who's 93, has a crush on Andy." She turned toward her producer, who was standing off stage. "Andy, you've got to admire her." Andy blushed and waved as the audience cheered. Ellen continued rifling through the letters, each one bringing smiles and laughter from both her and the studio audience. But then her hand stopped on something different. Buried beneath the colorful modern correspondence was an envelope that looked distinctly older. The paper was cream-colored and slightly yellowed at the edges, and most notably, it was addressed entirely in handwriting, something rarely seen in an age of digital communication. "Wait a minute," Ellen said, holding up the envelope. "This one's different. Look at this handwriting, it's beautiful. And this envelope, it looks like it's been around for a while." She turned the envelope over carefully. The return address was written in the same careful script, Michael Thompson, Portland, Oregon. There was no zip code extension, and the stamp was an older design she hadn't seen in years. "This is interesting," Ellen murmured, more to herself than to the audience. Something about the envelope felt significant, though she couldn't quite put her finger on why. She opened it carefully, noting how the paper inside was the same cream color as the envelope, and unfolded what appeared to be several pages of handwritten text. The same beautiful penmanship covered both sides of each page. "Okay, this one's from Michael in Portland," Ellen began, then paused as she started reading the date at the top of the letter. "Wait, this is dated. This says December 15th, 2009. Ellen looked up at the audience with confusion. "That's 15 years ago. How did a 15-year-old letter end up in today's fan mail?" She looked back down at the letter and began reading silently. As her eyes moved across the first few lines, her expression changed dramatically. The playful energy she'd had moments before was replaced by something much more serious. "Oh my God," she whispered, loud enough for the microphones to pick up. The studio fell silent. Ellen's face had gone pale, and her hands were trembling slightly as she held the pages. "Ellen?" Andy called from off stage. "You okay?" Ellen looked up at the audience, then back down at the letter. "I don't understand how this is possible." She took a deep breath and looked directly into the camera. "I need to read this to you, all of you, because I think this is important." Ellen's voice was steady but emotional as she began to read. December 15th, 2009. "Dear Ellen, I don't know if you'll ever read this letter, because I don't know if I'll ever send it. I'm writing it at 3 a.m. because I can't sleep, and because I need to tell someone what happened to me today, what you did for me today, even though you'll never know you did it." Ellen paused, her voice catching slightly. "I was going to kill myself today, Ellen. I had it all planned out. I'd been planning it for weeks. I won't go into the details because that's not what this letter is about, but I want you to know that by the time I turned on your show this afternoon, I had already written my goodbye letters. I had already decided that today was the day." The studio was completely silent now. Ellen's eyes were filling with tears as she continued reading. But then your show came on and you did this segment about people who had overcome impossible odds. You talked about this woman who had survived cancer twice and started a foundation to help other patients. You talked about this teenager who had been homeless but never gave up on his education and was starting college on a full scholarship. Ellen had to stop reading for a moment to compose herself. The audience was hanging on every word, and then you looked directly into the camera. I swear it felt like you were looking directly at me, and you said something that changed everything. You said, if you're watching this and you're going through something difficult, I want you to know that your story isn't over yet. The chapter you're in right now isn't the final chapter. There are so many beautiful pages still to be written. Ellen's voice broke completely. She set the letter down for a moment and wiped her eyes. I'm sorry, she said to the audience. I need a moment. The audience was silent, many of them crying along with Ellen. After a few seconds, she picked up the letter again. Ellen, I don't know if you meant those words for someone like me, but they hit me like lightning. I realized that I was about to end my story before I knew how it was supposed to end. I was about to rob myself of all the chapters that hadn't been written yet. Ellen's voice grew stronger as she continued reading. I put away the things I had planned to use to hurt myself. I called the suicide prevention hotline instead. I talked to someone for 3 hours, and then I made a promise to myself that I would wait 1 year before making any permanent decisions about my life. Ellen looked up at the audience. There's more, she said softly. Ellen, I'm writing this letter 1 year later, and I can't believe what my life has become. I went back to school. I started volunteering at a crisis center. I met someone who makes me laugh every day. I adopted a dog who needed me as much as I needed him. But most importantly, I started a support group for people going through what I was going through. We meet every week, and Ellen, I get to be for other people what you were for me that day. A voice telling them their story isn't over yet. Ellen had to stop reading again. She was crying openly now, and several audience members were sobbing. I've helped 12 people through their darkest moments this year, Ellen. 12 people who might not be here if I hadn't been here to help them. And none of that would have happened if you hadn't said exactly what I needed to hear, exactly when I needed to hear it. Ellen's voice was barely a whisper now. I'm not sending this letter because I don't need you to know what you did. I just needed to write it down to make it real. But I want you to know that somewhere in Portland, Oregon, there's a man named Michael Thompson who exists because of your kindness, and who is passing that kindness on to others every single day. Thank you for saving my life without even knowing you were doing it. Love, Michael. Ellen set the letter down and looked up at the audience through her tears. I don't understand how this letter got here today. It's dated 15 years ago, and he clearly says he wasn't going to send it. She stood up suddenly, her producer instincts kicking in. Michael Thompson, if you're watching this, I need to meet you. Andy, can we find him? Andy was already on his phone, gesturing to the production team. We're on it, Ellen. Ellen turned back to the audience. You guys, I do this show every day, and I never know who's watching or how what we do here might affect someone. But this is why we do what we do. This is proof that kindness matters, that words matter, that showing up for each other matters. She picked up the letter again. Michael wrote this 15 years ago, and somehow it found its way to me today. I don't believe in coincidences. I think the universe wanted me to read this, wanted all of us to hear this story. Ellen's phone, which was sitting on the table beside her chair, suddenly rang. She looked at Andy, who nodded. This might be our production team, Ellen said, answering the phone on speaker. Hello? Ellen, came a voice through the phone. This is Michael Thompson. Ellen nearly dropped the phone. The audience gasped collectively. Michael, is this really you? It's really me. I'm watching your show right now and I can't believe what just happened. Ellen sat down heavily in her chair. Michael, how did that letter get to me? You said you weren't going to send it. Michael's voice was thick with emotion. Ellen, I kept that letter for 15 years. I kept it in a box with other important things, and I would read it sometimes when I was having a hard day, to remind myself how far I'd come. But how did it get here? My house was broken into last week. They took some things, but they also threw a lot of stuff around. I found that box opened and some papers scattered. I thought everything was there, but I guess that letter somehow got mixed in with other mail that was going out. Ellen shook her head in amazement. Michael, that's impossible. But here we are. Ellen, can I tell you something? That letter is 15 years old, but I could have written it yesterday. I'm still here. I'm still helping people. And I still think about what you said that day. Your words have been guiding my life for 15 years. Ellen stood up again, pacing slightly. Michael, where are you right now? I'm at home in Portland watching your show with my support group. We always watch your show together on Thursdays. How many people are in your support group now? Today we have 8 people here, but over the years, Ellen, I've lost count. Hundreds of people have come through our doors. Some just needed a safe place for a few weeks. Others stayed for years, but they all heard your message through me, that their story wasn't over yet. Ellen looked directly into the camera. Michael, I want to meet you. I want to meet your support group. Can you come to Los Angeles? There was a pause. Ellen, we don't really have the money for something like that. Ellen smiled through her tears. Michael, you've been doing my work for 15 years without me even knowing it. Let me return the favor. I'm flying all of you out here, tomorrow. I want you on this show, and I want to meet every single person in that room with you. The audience erupted in applause, but Ellen held up her hand. I'm not finished. Michael, what do you need? What does your support group need to help more people? Ellen, we meet in my living room. It's fine, but it's small. And sometimes we have to turn people away because there's just not enough space. Not anymore. I'm going to help you find a permanent space, a real center where you can help as many people as you need to help. Michael was crying now, his voice breaking through the phone. Ellen, I can't, this is too much. No, Michael, it's not nearly enough. You took something I said 15 years ago and turned it into a mission to save lives. You've been my hands and my voice in Portland this whole time. This is the least I can do. Ellen turned to the audience. You guys, do you understand what just happened here? Michael Thompson wrote a letter he never intended to send, and through some miracle, it found its way to me 15 years later. And in that time he saved countless lives, using words I said without even knowing their impact. She looked back at the phone. Michael, I have one more question for you. That thing I said about stories not being over yet. Do you still believe that? More than ever, Ellen. In fact, it's become the motto of our support group. We have it painted on the wall. Your story isn't over yet. Ellen wiped her eyes and smiled. Michael, I think your story just started a brand new chapter. The next day, Michael Thompson and 7 members of his support group flew to Los Angeles. When Ellen introduced them on the show, there wasn't a dry eye in the studio. Michael, now 53 with kind eyes and a gentle demeanor, sat beside Ellen and told his story in his own words. Ellen, 15 years ago, I thought I was worthless, he said. I thought the world would be better without me, but you helped me realize that I wasn't meant to be the end of my story. I was meant to be the beginning of someone else's hope. Ellen established the Michael Thompson Foundation that day, providing funding for suicide prevention and support groups across the country. But more importantly, she helped spread Michael's message to millions of viewers. The handwritten letter was framed and hung in Ellen's office, but not before she had it photographed and turned into posters that were distributed to crisis centers, hospitals, and counseling offices around the world. The simple message, "Your story isn't over yet," became a rallying cry for people struggling with mental health issues. Years later, Ellen would say that finding Michael's letter was one of the most important moments of her career, not because of the television it made, but because it reminded her that every word spoken with kindness has the potential to ripple through time in ways we never imagine. And Michael, he kept helping people, one story at a time, proving that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is remind someone that their next chapter might be the most beautiful one yet. Because some letters travel through time to find exactly the right moment to be read, and some connections are so strong they transcend decades to prove that kindness never expires.